If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 41. Let Godzilla Run Free. Create Transformers. After Lorien finished speaking, he released the small Godzilla into the sea. The creature, currently no larger than a calf, swam around excitedly. Lorien couldn't help but wonder how this little creature would one day grow into the gigantic behemoth of legend. The sound of Godzilla's cries echoed through the water as it swam back towards Lorien, clearly not wanting to be left behind. Lorien chuckled and gently patted Godzilla's head. "Little guy, New York can't support you. You need to grow here first. Once you're bigger or can control your size, I'll bring you back," he reassured it. Godzilla's reluctance was palpable, but Lorien knew this was for the best. He needed the creature to be safe and to thrive, and the sea offered it the best chance to do that. Suddenly, Lorien remembered an important fact. Godzilla can absorb nuclear fusion energy to grow, right? Any high-energy source should work, he mused. This realization struck him like lightning. His recent acquisition, the planetary engine, harnessed heavy nuclear fusion energy, exactly what Godzilla needed. Without hesitation, Lorien dove into the sea, descending to a safe spot on the ocean floor. He set up a controlled environment and placed the heavy nuclear fusion reactor from the planetary engine into a secure stand. "All right, this should do it," Lorien muttered, satisfied with his setup. Immediately, the tiny Godzilla clung to the reactor, absorbing the potent energy it radiated. Lorien smiled as he touched Godzilla's head one last time. "I'm leaving now, but I'll come back to check on you soon," he promised. Godzilla's mournful cry tugged at his heart, but he knew he had to leave. With a snap of his fingers, Lorien teleported back home, pondering the unlikely pet he had just secured. The idea of raising Godzilla, the Singularity Godzilla, no less, was surreal. He couldn't even fathom how massive it might grow. What if I fed it the Infinity Stones? He wondered briefly, imagining the ludicrous possibility of an Infinity Gem-powered Godzilla. However, Lorien quickly dismissed the thought with a shake of his head. There were more immediate matters to consider. Next on his mind was the Allspark he had recently acquired. The Allspark had the remarkable ability to breathe life into machines, turning them into sentient beings. The thought was both thrilling and daunting. But there was a catch. For a machine to come alive, it needed a power source, an engine, a battery, something to fuel it. This was akin to the Soul Stone, but with a focus on machines rather than living beings. Could the Allspark animate a planetary engine? Lorien speculated. Given its mechanical nature and power source, it seemed plausible. However, the planetary engine's massive size, thousands of meters tall, posed a logistical nightmare. Transforming it into a colossal robot might be more trouble than it was worth. Never mind, Lorien decided, shaking off the idea. Let's start with something more manageable. He turned his attention to his sports car, a sleek Ferrari, parked in his underground garage. He made his way there, bypassing the camera surveillance with a quick snap of his fingers to freeze the footage for half an hour. With the fire source, the Allspark, in hand, Lorien approached his car. The moment the Allspark appeared, the entire garage seemed to come alive, the cars trembling as if eager to transform. Lorien placed the Allspark on the hood of the Ferrari, and instantly, metallic waves rippled across the car's surface. The transformation began, and Lorien stepped back to watch in awe. The Ferrari's wheels retracted, the engine shifted into the chest, doors morphed into arms, and the drivetrain reconfigured into legs. Before Lorien's eyes, the car transformed into a 9-meter-tall, fiery red transformer, its body gleaming like a phoenix. With a metallic clang, the transformer's visor opened, and it knelt before Lorien, offering the Allspark back to him. "Thank you, my creator, for granting me life," it said in a deep, reverent voice. Lorien took the Allspark, a broad smile on his face. "From now on, just call me boss," he instructed. "The term master is too formal. And let's save the screaming for the ladies," he added with a chuckle. "Yes, boss." The transformer responded dutifully. "Please give me a name." Lorien pondered for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the transformer's fiery red frame. Skyfire, he decided. The name suited its powerful, phoenix-like appearance. "Understood." Skyfire responded, the name echoing with pride. Lorien walked around his new creation, admiring the intricate details. Skyfire bore no faction symbols, neither Autobot nor Decepticon. It was entirely his, loyal only to him. He noticed his own name elegantly engraved on Skyfire's frame, a testament to its allegiance. Ho ho! Whoa view! Skyfire roared to life, its engine revving with a deep, powerful sound. With a final nod of satisfaction, Lorien climbed into Skyfire, and they drove out of the underground garage, merging onto the highway. The sleek, transformed Ferrari was more than just a car now, it was a loyal companion, ready to face whatever adventures lay ahead. Chapter 42, Stephen was in a car accident. Show your ability. Extra chapter. Dash. Sitting in the driver's seat of the sports car, Lorien lightly pressed the accelerator, and the Ferrari surged forward like a wild horse released from its reins. Ha ha ha! The exhilaration of acceleration sent a thrill down Lorien's spine. This sensation of being pushed back into the seat was different from flying. This was more like riding a powerful beast. Skyfire, how long does it take you to go from 0 to 100 and 0 to 400 meters? Skyfire responded immediately, 1.6 seconds and 6.2 seconds, respectively. Woohoo! The numbers were intense. I'll give it a try. Without another word, Lorien steered the Ferrari onto an unrestricted highway and pressed the accelerator to the floor, feeling the rush of blistering speed. Whew. In an instant, the Ferrari streaked down the open road like a bolt of lightning. At the same time, a silver GTR was also pushing its newly tuned performance to the limit. The driver, eyes glued to the speedometer, marveled as the needle climbed higher and higher. This is so cool! The GTR driver shouted. But then, a red blur whizzed past with a loud whoosh. Waterfuck! The GTR driver exclaimed, glancing at his speedometer showing 321 km per hour. He was going fast, but the red car had passed him as if he was standing still. Damn it! I need to upgrade my car again. After leaving a random driver in the dust, Lorien exited the highway. He drove along the coastline, the night sky deepening as he went. Looking out to sea, he couldn't see far, but a piece of news on his phone caught his attention. Dr. Stephen Strange, the top surgeon in the United States, was in a car accident last night. Strange woke up tonight and said that both his hands were injured and he would not be able to perform surgeries anymore. Seeing this, Lorien sighed. Some things were inevitable. Stephen had to endure this hardship to become the Sorcerer Supreme. As his friend, Lorien felt a pang of sadness. Though he couldn't help directly, he could offer some indirect support. Skyfire, take me to the best hospital in New York. Skyfire automatically adjusted its course and headed towards the hospital. 20 minutes later, the Ferrari was parked downstairs. Lorien stepped out and made a call to arrange his visit. A few minutes later, Lorien entered the hospital. Stephen lay in bed, his hands bound to medical equipment. When he saw Lorien, he winced in pain but forced a smile. Hiss, you're fast. Only half an hour after the news broke, Stephen said with a faint smile. But don't ever think about racing with you again. Stephen's hands were pinned in place by bone nails and fixators, each finger immobilized. Though he had just woken up and was under the effects of morphine, the pain was still evident. Lorien approached the bed, staring at Stephen's scarred hands in a moment of heavy silence. Stephen could feel Lorien's genuine concern. This was not just an obligatory visit. And Lorien could sense Stephen's despair. At under 30, Stephen's promising career and life seemed shattered. The hopelessness was palpable, as if someone was squeezing his heart. Hiss! Stephen took a sharp breath. More than half an hour had passed, and he knew the powerful effects of the morphine were fading. In 10 minutes, the excruciating pain would return, and to heal properly, he couldn't take more painkillers. He had to endure it. He exhaled a long breath, forcing one last smile at Lorien. Lorien, go back. I can feel your concern, Stephen said softly. I'll come hang out with you again when I get better. I may have lost my hands, but I still have my money. I can enjoy life for a long time, and then we can continue to have fun, right? Lorien nodded but also shook his head. Hey! Stephen didn't understand. Then, Lorien extended his hand over Stephen's injured hands. Golden red energy flowed from Lorien's hand, enveloping Stephen's fingers. Stephen felt a tingling sensation, and the pain noticeably lessened. When Lorien finished, he withdrew his hand and met Stephen's bewildered gaze. This energy will help you heal faster and with less pain, Lorien explained. He turned and walked towards the door, pausing to look back. Come see me when you're better, he said, before stepping out. Chapter 43, Gwen fights the Lizard Man. Transformers are dispatched. Dash. As Lorien stepped out of the hospital gates, he knew that the ordinary world was gradually becoming less relevant to him. Starting with Stephen, even the small display of his abilities marked the beginning of a journey from which there was no return. Once the barrier is broken, it opens the floodgates, leading to more and more revelations. Only absolute zero is absolute, anything beyond that is a step into the extraordinary. And now, Lorien was already beyond the threshold. But that was fine. As long as he remained strong enough, he could choose what to do or not do. No one could force his hand. Not feeling up to driving, Lorien let Skyfire, his Ferrari, navigate and drive him home. Once the Ferrari entered the underground garage, Lorien opened the door and received the latest news alert. Breaking news, an evil lizard man and unknown scientific devices have been spotted on the roof of the Osborn building. No superheroes are currently present to stop them. New York police have been dispatched. Further updates to follow. Update: Spider-Woman has arrived at the Osborn building and is engaged in battle with the Lizard Man. Lorien sighed deeply after reading the news. He knew this meant Dr. Lizard was deploying some kind of gene diffuser. Gwen had been preoccupied with investigating the Lizard Man's activities over the past few days. Today hadn't been a good day for Lorien, and now knowing his little spider was in danger, his mood darkened even further. Skyfire, Lorien said, putting away his phone and shaking his head as he walked toward the elevator, go take care of it. Yes, boss, the Ferrari responded. As the elevator doors closed, Lorien returned to his room and switched on the TV to watch the live broadcast of the battle at Osborn Tower. Meanwhile, Skyfire, now an empty car, autonomously headed to the Osborn building. The distance was short, just about 10 kilometers. On the city streets, the blazing red Ferrari streaked like a fiery comet toward its destination. At the same time, high above the Osborn building, the Lizard Man smirked at Spider-Woman. I've done my research. Scarlet Witch and the Avengers are out of the country, and Iron Man is in another state. He won't be here for at least half an hour, the Lizard Man taunted. Do you think you, just one little bug, can stop me? Gwen, in her spider suit, stood atop a condensation tank, her hood covering her face. She replied, her voice filled with determination, Mr. Lizard Man, I've been waiting for you to show up for a long time. The Lizard Man was taken aback. Why had she been waiting for him? Wasn't she supposed to be trying to stop him? Gwen continued, if I had just told Lorien I was Spider-Woman, it would have meant nothing. I need to accomplish something significant to stand before him proudly, not as ordinary Gwen, but as Spider-Gwen. He has Scarlet Witch, a superhero, by his side. Being just Gwen isn't enough, I have to be Spider-Gwen. With that declaration, Gwen leaped into action. She shot webs left and right, launching herself toward the Lizard Man like a cannonball. The Lizard Man raised his arms in defense. Bang! The impact was powerful. The Lizard Man staggered back, swinging wildly, only to find that Gwen had disappeared. Turning, he saw Gwen sprinting toward the genetic modification transmitter. Bug! The Lizard Man roared, charging after her. Reaching the transmitter, Gwen saw it required a password for deactivation or could be destroyed by force. Not knowing the password, she opted to use her webs to pull the transmitter from the building to destroy it. Bang! 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 But the Lizard Man caught up, his massive hand swiping at her. Gwen dodged swiftly, pulling herself away with her webbing and then propelling herself back to kick the Lizard Man in the head. Bang! The Lizard Man was momentarily stunned, allowing Gwen to shoot more webbing to bind him and return to the transmitter. However, the device was heavy, and she could only move it a few centimeters per second. With several meters to go before reaching the building's edge, Gwen calculated she needed at least 2 or 3 minutes to complete the task. Phew, I'm going to sweat a lot today, Gwen muttered, dodging another swipe from the Lizard Man. She deftly swung from a nearby machine, gaining momentum, and delivered a powerful kick to the Lizard Man's head. Clearly, Spider-Gwen was adept at using acceleration, perhaps even more so than other versions of Spider-Man. But Dr. Lizard's strength was formidable. Bang! Gwen's kick sent the Lizard Man sprawling. Seeing him fall, Gwen sighed. Can't you just stay down? This is getting annoying. If Spider-Gwen's fans were here, they might have cheered in unison, we give up, we give up. But the confused and enraged Dr. Lizard was far from surrendering. Gwen clapped her hands as she watched Dr. Lizard rise again. She sighed once more. Looks like I need to knock you down first, she said, her voice tinged with frustration. But what if the transmitter's time is almost up? She was deep in thought when the sound of a powerful engine roared from a distance. Woohoo! Gwen froze, recognizing the sound. Why does that car sound a bit like Lorien's? Chapter 44, Transformer appear. Supercars travel vertically. Dash. She was deep in thought when the sound of a powerful engine roared from a distance. Woohoo! Gwen froze, recognizing the sound. Why does that car sound a bit like Lorien's? Not a bit like it, however. But it is. With the sound of the sports car approaching, Dr. Lizard didn't know who it was. He moved forward quickly, trying to knock down Gwen, and fired the gene transmitter. Its large, brown-green hands swung suddenly. Gwen ducked without even looking at it. Are you still sneak attacking? She taunted. After a few back jumps, Gwen widened the distance. She took the opportunity to come to the edge of the building and look down. As expected, a Ferrari as red as a phoenix was driving fast. It seems to be Lorien's car. Gwen was overjoyed but also worried about how she would protect Lorien when he arrived. Would he get hurt? What should she do? How can it be? Dr. Lizard was taken aback. Scarlet Witch and the Avengers are out of the country. There's no way they're coming. Gwen knew Dr. Lizard regarded Lorien as someone from the Avengers because Lorien was there the previous 2 times, and both superheroes obeyed Lorien's commands. That's why Dr. Lizard thought so now. In this case, Gwen rolled her eyes, stood up, and said with hands on her hips, "You wait. Scarlet Witch will pop your head off later." How is it possible? Dr. Lizard was shocked. Impossible, they are all abroad. The afternoon news just came out. But Scarlet Witch knows magic. Gwen raised her chin and said. How can you know magic with your lizard brain? No. It's impossible. The sound of the Ferrari got closer. Dr. Lizard hurriedly ran to the edge of the building to check the situation. As soon as Gwen saw this, she quickly ran to the other side and continued to move the gene transmitter. Dr. Lizard looked down. It really was that car. Oh no. I need to launch the device quickly. Dr. Lizard hammered the floor. As a result, it turned its head. Where's Spider-Gwen? Then it turned around again. She was moving the device. You bug! Gwen heard this, curled her lip, and continued to move the device. You wait. It's not that Gwen didn't report, it's just that the time has not come. When I get this thing out of the way, I'll take care of you. Gwen gritted her teeth and moved, but Dr. Lizard rushed over. Gwen quickly looked behind her. There was less than 1 meter left. Just give her 10 more seconds to destroy this thing. But it's still too late. Dr. Lizard came at her, waving his fists and big tail. Gwen could only dodge first and then speak. Once the distance was opened, she looked up at the time on the transmitter. Only a few minutes left. She still had to tangle with Dr. Lizard before she could move. It's too late. Woo! Woo-oh! At this time, the sound of the car came from downstairs. Suddenly, the Ferrari's accelerator pedal increased sharply, like a fighter jet engine. Really here? Gwen hurried to the edge of the building to check. A Ferrari was actually driving 90 degrees off the ground on the wall of the building. Its vent wasn't just venting, it was breathing fire. And it sprayed out the Mach ring, causing the Ferrari to drive on the wall of the building at a 90-degree angle. It's so awesome! Gwen gaped. She was now sure this was Lorien's car. But she really didn't expect this car to be so powerful. What kind of black technology is this? Is Lorien coming? But is there any danger? Dr. Lizard panicked when he heard the sound of a fighter jet engine from the supercar. He hurried to the edge of the building to have a look. He was startled at first, then suddenly reacted and laughed. Bug, there's no one in the car. What are you expecting? Ah! Who can you rely on? A reminder from Dr. Lizard made Gwen look again. She was surprised to find out there was no one in the car. For a moment, Gwen was both happy and disappointed. Wait! She suddenly reacted again. If there's no one in the car, how did the car get here? Dr. Lizard! Wait a minute, my CPU is burned. Dr. Lizard looked down again. Ah yes! No one was driving the car, so how did it get here? Dr. Lizard was stunned. But before it figured it out, Skyfire of the building hundreds of meters high opened up in a few seconds. Woo! Between Gwen and Dr. Lizard, the fiery red Ferrari soared into the sky. Then, in their shocked eyes, Skyfire began to transform in the air. Ting-ding! Various mechanical modules began to change, and mechanical heads, engine chests, armors, engines, and long swords appeared one by one. Soon, a shape-shifting King Kong appeared in the air and landed on the roof. Boom! Rippling with the wind and waves, a shape-shifting transformer with a height of more than 9 meters and a red long sword on its waist stood there as if its whole body was exuding flames. Gwen is 1.7 meters tall and Dr. Lizard is 2.6 meters, but they both had to look up to see Skyfire's mechanical face clearly. The TV station helicopter in the distance went crazy after seeing this picture. Chapter 45, Tony's Shock. Skyfire kills the Lizardman instantly. Dash. Latest news. Latest news. A humanoid mecha has appeared on top of the Osborn building. A humanoid mecha has appeared on the top of the Osborn building. It's transforming. It changed from a car to a robot during the live stream. What is this? What is this? The TV reporter roared from the helicopter. His excited voice was transmitted through the microphone to everyone watching the broadcast. The viewers were stunned. The Lizard Man and Spider-Woman were already enough to handle, but now there was this big mech. Skyfire, standing more than 9 meters tall on the roof of the building with its fiery red body, was extremely eye-catching. Everyone could only look up in awe. In the northern building, Lorien held his popcorn, watching the live broadcast, and felt something was off. It seems, it's really a bit ostentatious. But there was no turning back now. It was public. Anyway, very few people knew whose car it was. If you've been seen, might as well continue the act. In a beach house in Los Angeles, Tony didn't think so. At the moment, he was developing the nano armor and had reached a critical moment, unable to spare himself to take care of other things. He had also reminded Friday not to bother him unless it was important. Block any news. But Friday still gave a direct reminder. Sir, the latest technological product has appeared in New York City. I think you need to take a look. Puffing Tony was taken aback by Friday's sudden announcement. But after hearing that something significant had happened, he could only sigh. If only J.A.R.V.I.S was still around. When J.A.R.V.I.S reminded him, it would automatically lower its voice and remind him in a slow tone, unlike Friday, who sounded like an emotionless frigid secretary. Well. Tony approached the computer and waved his hand in the air to bring up the screen with Friday's reminder. The result screen displayed the live broadcast from the TV station and footage from Tony's own satellite. Yes, Tony had his own satellite, much like Musk's Starlink. But the most important thing now was the shape-shifting transformer, Skyfire. Tony watched Skyfire closely and then gestured to zoom in. The satellite started zooming in on the image. Tony scrutinized every detail of Skyfire's body and then shook his head. It doesn't make sense. This state cannot become a human form. Machinery may also change from a car to life in this way. There must be other technologies. Is it nanotechnology? Tony pondered, trying to figure out the technology that allowed Skyfire to transform from a car into a humanoid mecha. He analyzed it in his head many times, concluding that Skyfire's core technology was completely different from his Mark armor. The two were on entirely different technological paths. What kind of technology is that? Tony mused, diving into research. At the same time, under the spotlight, Skyfire didn't say a word, nor did it greet anyone. PFF, it directly drew the long sword from its waist. With all eyes on it, Skyfire pointed at Dr. Lizard. Wow! Gwen immediately understood. You are Lorien's friend. Or did Lorien ask you to come here? Skyfire didn't respond, just raised its sword and walked toward Dr. Lizard. 2 bugs. Dr. Lizard spat, then rushed at Skyfire with his large fists. But in the next moment, boom! Skyfire stepped forward, sending Dr. Lizard flying back faster than he had come. Dr. Lizard hit the floor with a smack. Skyfire continued to approach, ready to eliminate Dr. Lizard. FK. Dr. Lizard struggled to get up and then swore. He turned and ran. It wasn't stupid, after just one encounter, it knew it couldn't fight the 9-meter-high mech. Seeing Dr. Lizard run, Gwen was momentarily frozen. Did his attitude change so quickly? But what everyone didn't expect was that Skyfire was faster. Boom! Suddenly, Skyfire's waist, legs, and feet ejected energy flames, with mock rings swaying behind. In an instant, Skyfire disappeared and reappeared next to Dr. Lizard. As Dr. Lizard tried to jump from the building, Skyfire swung its long sword twice, from left to right and top to bottom. PFF. Skyfire then sheathed its long sword. Dr. Lizard, now in 4 pieces up, down, left, and right fell from the building. Even its head was split in half, making it impossible to revive. Chapter 46, The owner of the car is Lorien. Gwen arrives late at night. Dash. Wow. Gwen approached the edge of the building, her eyes widening as she took in the sight of Dr. Lizard, now severed into 4 distinct pieces. She couldn't help but voice her thoughts. It seems that having weapons makes a difference. Fists and kicks really are a bit too weak. She nodded, satisfied, and added, almost casually, to the remains, and by the way, I do smell good. Indeed, Lorien could vouch for that. Whether it was body perfume or shower gel, Gwen always had a pleasant scent. Turning her attention back to Skyfire, who had just sheathed his sword, Gwen's curiosity bubbled over. Isn't that car Lorien's? How did you transform from a car into this? She asked. Skyfire, ever the model of efficiency, didn't indulge in unnecessary conversation. The boss assigned me to eliminate the threat, it replied, its voice metallic and precise. Now that the task is complete, I'm leaving. With that, Skyfire grabbed the building's edge with one mechanical hand and hooked its fingers into the wall, beginning its descent. Wait! Gwen called, rushing to the edge to get more information. But before she could say more, her eyes caught the 2 gold-plated words on Skyfire's chest as it descended. They were emblazoned prominently against the red steel, Lorien. It really is Lorien's! She exclaimed, feeling a surge of joy. This confirmed what she had suspected. Lorien was no ordinary person. His low-profile demeanor and reluctance to showcase his abilities mirrored the principles he had taught her. Like her, he sought to be a free, independent hero, not a professional one. This revelation filled Gwen with a sense of relief and excitement. She realized that when she eventually told Lorien about her identity as Spider-Gwen, there would be no need to worry. They shared the same mindset. Great! She shouted in excitement. Then, snapping back to the present, Gwen remembered the gene transmitter still running nearby. She quickly rushed over to shut it down. With Dr. Lizard no longer in her way, it was a simple task. Papa! She clapped her hands, satisfied with the result. Time to go home. In the midst of the live broadcast, Gwen gracefully swung away, disappearing into the night, leaving the viewers with a final glimpse of her in action. Returning home, Gwen slipped into her room through the window, humming a tune. She pondered when she should approach Lorien. Having indirectly revealed her identity, she now felt it was time for full disclosure. But when should she go? Gwen leaned against the window, staring at the moonlit sky. She recalled Dr. Lizard's words, the Scarlet Witch is still abroad, and the Avengers are all gone. Who can you rely on? This implied that New York was currently without its usual protectors. Yet Gwen thought, a plan forming in her mind. Tonight would be perfect. With her resolve firm, Gwen donned her hood once more, climbed out the window, and shot a web, heading straight for the north building's top floor where Lorien resided. Meanwhile, in his apartment, Lorien, having seen the resolution of the incident, switched the TV channel and resumed his evening. He liked to leave the TV on, a small indulgence of wasted electricity. Skyfire had completed its mission perfectly, no unnecessary words, just action. Skyfire had already parked in the underground garage of the north building and sent a message to Lorien's phone, "Boss, mission accomplished." Lorien replied with satisfaction, "Well done. You're free to connect to the internet and learn about the world until my next orders." "Yes, sir," came the prompt response. Satisfied, Lorien turned off his phone and tossed it onto the bed. He had no fear that Skyfire would turn rogue like Ultron. As its creator, Lorien was the bearer of the Allspark, ensuring the Transformers' absolute loyalty. With that assurance, Lorien grabbed a cup of milk tea and moved to the floor-to-ceiling window, enjoying the night view. He wondered how Wanda had changed during her time away. The universe had a way of altering people, and he was curious to see how she had evolved under his guidance. He anticipated her visit upon her return, looking forward to the company. Knock knock. His musings were interrupted by 2 soft knocks on the right side of the window. Smiling, Lorien turned to see who it was. The window appeared empty at first glance, but then he saw her. Spider-Gwen, hanging upside down from a thread of web, slowly descended until they were eye to eye, separated only by the glass. Even without seeing her full face, Lorien recognized those vibrant, lively eyes. It was Gwen. Holding his milk tea in his left hand, Lorien used his right to trace 4 letters on the glass, Gwen. As if on cue, Gwen's eyes widened in surprise. She pulled back her hood, revealing her flushed face and flowing blonde hair. "Hello, Lorien. I'm your mentor, Spider-Gwen." Chapter 47, A Beautiful View for Two People. Gwen wants to drink. Dash. Number New York, 10:30 p.m. On the top floor of a northern Manhattan building, 2 people stood facing each other through the glass. Because Lorien lived there, the glass on the top floor had been modified. Though it looked like a regular floor-to-ceiling window, it was actually composed of 3 reinforced panes, top, middle, and bottom. The middle pane could slide open, allowing a breeze to flow in. Lorien watched as Gwen, her blonde hair flowing, hung upside down just outside. As he opened the glass, a gust of wind rushed in, pushing Gwen towards him. They drew closer until they could feel each other's breath. With the final push from the wind, Gwen closed her eyes and leaned in. Their lips met softly, the upside-down kiss bonding them in an extraordinary, gravity-defying embrace hundreds of meters above the ground, a scene that no ordinary humans could ever replicate. As the wind died down, they slowly separated. Gwen's cheeks flushed as she opened her eyes, glistening with emotion. Lorien, with a smile, magically produced a cup of milk tea. "Want to come in for a drink?" he asked. Without hesitation, Gwen grabbed the milk tea. With a graceful twist, she flipped over and landed inside. Lorien watched, marveling at her agility, and closed the window. As he headed to the guest area, he saw Gwen already at the wine rack, eyeing the bottles eagerly. "I want beer," she declared, her voice firm. "Stop kidding around," Lorien replied, settling into a chair. He produced some snacks and desserts with a casual flick. "You're an adult now, so have something a bit more grown up." "I'm serious," Gwen pouted as she sifted through the wines, picking out the one with the highest alcohol content. She grabbed 2 large glasses and winked at Lorien. "I just turned 21 last month." Lorien paused. Well, she was technically an adult now. He realized that Gwen, a high school senior, would be graduating soon and heading to college. Gwen's intentions, however, went beyond just drinking. She wanted to experience everything adulthood had to offer. Watching her pour the expensive wine into the glasses, Lorien shrugged. Money was never a concern for him, anyway. "Are you planning to stay in your suit the whole time?" Lorien asked, noticing Gwen still in her Spider-Woman attire. "Of course," she replied, setting the wine bottle aside and sitting down. "I came straight here after stopping the lizard man's genetic modification plan. Didn't even have time to go home and change." Without further ado, she raised her glass and clinked it against Lorien's. "Cheers." Lorien hesitated. "Are you sure about this? That's the strongest liquor I have. You don't want to end up a drunk spider." Gwen squinted at the bottle, pretending not to find the alcohol content. "No label, no strength." Lorien, bemused, raised his glass. "Cheers." He took a moderate sip while Gwen gulped down nearly her entire glass. To any connoisseur, it would have been a travesty, but for Lorien and Gwen, it was just a prop in their evening together. Gwen slammed her glass down, sticking out her tongue as the alcohol burned her throat. "Woo, so strong." Lorien chuckled at her antics. Gwen glanced up. "Why did you drink so little? Don't you feel the burn?" "I'm used to it," Lorien replied, taking another sip. "Wine is meant to be enjoyed slowly, in small sips. Only beer is for chugging." Gwen waved off his advice and poured herself another glass, topping off Lorien's as well. "Then let's have beer next time." They drank and chatted, the atmosphere growing warm and intoxicating. "Lorien, what was that mech?" "I'm so curious," Gwen asked, her words slurring slightly. "Transformers," Lorien replied, a bit tipsy himself. "I'll introduce them to you next time. They have life and soul, transforming between a supercar and a powerful robot." Wow, Gwen's eyes sparkled with excitement. She moved her chair closer to Lorien, eager to learn more. "You're not just an ordinary person, are you? Everything you taught me, it's all from your own experiences, right?" Lorien smiled softly as she continued. I get it now. I want to be like you, a superhero when I need to be, but living my life freely otherwise. Being a hero is just a side job. Looking at the drunk and enthusiastic Gwen, Lorien didn't offer further explanations. He simply raised his glass and said, right. In the warmth of the evening and the gentle buzz of alcohol, they found comfort in each other's presence. Chapter 48, Pas de deux. Everyone knows. Atmosphere is the basis of all rhythm advancement. Without the right environment and atmosphere, it's like a lighter that only makes a crackling sound but has no gasoline. It can't burn at all. It can't even create the fireworks of love. Right now, the TV that had been on just started broadcasting a music program. And it happens to be a gentle and romantic song. This led to Lorien picking up Gwen's filled glass and taking another sip. Finally, he just put it down. Gwen took his hand, stood up, and said, Lorien, let's dance. Lorien was pulled up by Gwen. He was 1.8 meters tall, and Gwen was 1.7 meters tall. The two of them standing together were the perfect height. Gwen took Lorien's hand and turned around. Her flexible body spun many circles in Lorien's palm. Then she fell into Lorien's arms. A little dizzy, Gwen muttered. However, Lorien gently stroked Gwen's face, put his arms around her curvy waist, and spoke softly. It's okay, I'll take you with me. And so, accompanied by the romantic dance music from the TV station, they danced gracefully. With the physical contact, Gwen's cheeks became more and more rosy. At the same time, there was a growing sparkle in her eyes. Finally, with Gwen's intentional dancing, the two of them jumped onto the extremely soft big bed. They landed on the velvet quilt with a final bang. Gwen closed her eyes. Lorien lowered his head to search for her lips. The dance between the two did not end. It just continued in a different way. This dance was more lively. It made the big bed creak. It also made the dancers' spirits sway. But the dance never stopped. The next day. Knock, knock. Accompanied by a knock on the door. Gwen, if you don't get up, you're going to be late for school. Her mother reminded from outside the door. I get it, I'll get up right away. Gwen suddenly woke up and replied casually. Then she looked at the spider suit with 3 holes torn at the end of the bed and a set of Lorien's clothes and fell into deep thought. What happened last night? She went to find Lorien, then drank, then danced, then. Finally, she and Lorien took a shower together. Then she suddenly remembered that she had to go to school tomorrow. That's why she wore Lorien's clothes and took her own battle-damaged clothes home. Gwen blushed immediately. No wonder my legs and waist are so sore. But, I am very happy. I am very excited. And forget it. Hurry up and change your clothes and go to school. Fortunately, Gwen was in good physical condition, and even though it was her first time, she recovered almost completely overnight. She quickly got up and changed her clothes. Then she stuffed the new spider suit into her school bag. She put the damaged spider suit and Lorien's clothes into the bag and shot out a spider silk to hang it outside the window. Finally, Gwen hurried out and said, I'm leaving, Mom. It's too late for breakfast, I'll eat on the way. With that, Gwen walked out the door. She went to the window, jumped up, and took the clothes off. This suit needs to be hidden first. She'll come back to get it after school. 10 minutes later, after hiding her clothes, Gwen entered the campus carrying her green school bag. Gwen. Gwen's female classmate spotted her and trotted over. Then she was surprised to find out. Wow, Gwen, where did you get your facial done? What's wrong? Gwen asked, confused. Your face. The female classmate asked curiously, your face is so soft. It looks like it's filled with water. And your lips, they're as red as natural strawberries. I want to take a bite of them. Gwen was shocked when she heard this. She took the mirror handed to her by her female classmate and looked at it. The result was true. This face, these lips, these eyes, wow. Gwen calculated the time of her transformation. No need to think about it, it was last night. In other words. Gwen smiled slightly, and as she returned the mirror, her tongue passed across the corner of her mouth. At the same time. Avengers base. Many superheroes had just returned and were busy holding a meeting. At the conference table, Captain America had just finished talking about how to deal with the incident. Then he announced the disbandment and rest. Wanda sat in the chair with her brows slightly furrowed. Natasha saw it and walked over to ask. Wanda, what's wrong? Wanda shook her head. At the same time, she looked at Natasha and explained. Nothing. I just feel that this matter is a bit strange. But Wanda felt that the car was very familiar. But the video quality everyone got was very poor. Not many people knew what brand and model the car was. Although it was red, was it definitely a Ferrari? Seeing that Wanda was alright, Natasha nodded reassuringly. Then they followed Wanda out and went back to their rooms to rest. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles. Inside a beach villa, Tony leaned back in his chair and hadn't slept all night. He looked at the transformers on the virtual panel and fell into deep thought. What kind of technology is this? Tony didn't understand it yet. But he couldn't sleep, so he sat there thinking all night. Thinking about it gave him dark circles under his eyes and made his hair messy. Sir, this is not human technology. At this time, Friday, who had finally finished the analysis, spoke up. Based on a 10-hour scan and comparison of the human technology tree, the Red Mecha's technology does not belong to any technology known to humans. Even with breakthrough black technology, it is impossible to develop this kind of mecha. Tony listened and sighed. It seemed that no matter how talented he was, there were people in this world who were more talented than him. This was the kind of technology Tony actually needed. But he couldn't understand it just by looking. So, Tony decided to try a different approach. Friday, help me find the owner of this car. I want to visit him in person with full sincerity. Yes, sir. Oh, by the way, post all the information I prepared about Osborn building anonymously on the internet. Yes, sir. Chapter 49, Achievement, Spider Rider. Check in again. The world around Lorien gradually came into focus as he stirred awake. The memories of last night's excitement played through his mind. A soft chime brought him fully to consciousness. Ding! Congratulations to the host for achieving the achievement, Spider Knight. Lorien groggily glanced at the system notification, his eyes still adjusting to the morning light. Spider Knight? What does that do? He mumbled to himself. Spider Knight, slightly increases the check-in reward. Hearing this, Lorien's mood lifted. Well, that's actually useful. Fully awake now, he stretched on the large bed, feeling a mix of refreshment and lingering satisfaction. His hand brushed against some fabric, catching his attention. He sat up and examined the items in his hand, a piece of black cloth and 2 pieces of white fabric. Recognizing them as remnants of Gwen's Spider-Woman suit, he chuckled. He used the power of the Phoenix to disintegrate them into nothingness. Then, surveying the scene, he noticed the bed's state. The mattress was a patchwork of damp and wet spots, remnants of their passionate night. Tisk, Lorien sighed, slightly annoyed. Next time, I should use an absorbent mattress or remember to use magic to clean up. With a snap of his fingers, he invoked the Phoenix Force. This energy could reorganize or transform cosmic matter, and with a simple gesture, the entire top floor of his north building penthouse was pristine again. Water stains vanished, clothes were neatly stored, and all traces of last night's chaos were erased. Perfect, he said, nodding in satisfaction. Reflecting on the previous night, Lorien couldn't help but feel a mixture of amusement and mild chagrin. Initially, he intended to be gentle, considering Gwen's youthful exuberance. However, her enhanced, mutant physique proved resilient and surprisingly robust. Not only did she withstand his efforts, but she also matched him move for move. This unexpected toughness from Gwen ignited Lorien's competitive spirit. Fueled by the physical prowess of his Superman-like body, he engaged in a vigorous, all-out contest with her. In the end, their passionate encounters left Gwen exhausted, and her Spider-Woman suit in tatters, transitioning from pristine to battle-worn overnight. After their intense rendezvous, Lorien had gently bathed Gwen, who could barely stand, her legs trembling from exertion. Number later that morning. By 9 a.m., Lorien returned to his office, ready for another day of leisurely work. Too lazy to even order takeout, he opted for a simple meal of egg fried rice, one of the many items he had earned through his system check-ins. As he ate, he turned on the projector to catch up on the news. The Avengers have returned to their base, but their actions are still questioned. Will their frequent, unregulated use of superpowers truly ensure society's safety? The battle at the Osborn building rooftop has ended. The mutant lizard man's genetic structure collapsed, reducing him to a pool of liquid tissue. Spider-Woman saves the day again. Citizens proclaim, individual heroes are more effective than superhero teams. A massive mech warrior appeared in New York. Its combat capabilities are astounding and may surpass Iron Man. Who is its creator? Tony Stark. Stunning photos of Scarlet Witch in action revealed. Citizens urge Scarlet Witch to leave the Avengers and team up with Spider-Woman. Tony Stark denies creating the mech warriors seen last night. He refers to them as Transformers and invites their creator to contact him. Lorien smirked at the headlines, which were ablaze with big stories. The Avengers, the Lizard, Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Woman, and Transformers all dominated the news cycle. In the whirlwind of these events, the recent reports of Stephen Strange's injury had quickly been overshadowed. Well, that's probably for the best, Lorien thought. Stephen could use some peace and quiet for a proper recovery. Number afternoon. As the day progressed, Lorien noticed a new development on TV. Tony Stark's assistant, who might also be the new chairman, Pepper Potts, appeared in a news segment. The Stark Group's subsidiary had recently acquired a beverage company, changing its name to something milk tea. Classic Tony, Lorien chuckled, amused. Tony's penchant for recommending everyday delights was well known. He once endorsed a local burger joint, causing lines to stretch for blocks. Now, he was hyping up milk tea. If the milk tea was as good as Tony claimed, Lorien thought, the subsidiary might see a surge in popularity. It could even lead to a successful public offering, just from selling milk tea. As the clock approached 5 in the afternoon, Lorien's routine check-in was due. He closed his office door, settling into a moment of focused thought. Check-in, he said, initiating the system's process. Check-in successful. Reward, Zodiac Talisman, Valentine's Day Bracelet Gift, X2. Lorien read the note, a smile forming on his lips. Zodiac Talisman, Valentine's Day Bracelet Gift can be bound to a Zodiac Talisman bracelet that will not drop. The host receives the same effect regardless of who the gift is from or to. Chapter 50, 12 Talisman Bracelet. Wanda's Return. Can this thing be modified? Lorien wondered aloud, examining the ornate bracelet in his hands. Surprisingly, 2 identical pieces had arrived in his mail. He scrutinized one closely. It was a delicate, women's bracelet, adorned with 12 perfectly cut jewels. Each gem represented a sign of the Chinese zodiac: rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, and so on. Despite its beauty, Lorien frowned slightly. This bracelet was clearly designed for a woman. Its dainty and feminine style was not something he felt comfortable wearing. It would look out of place on him, almost effeminate. He already had the powers of a superhero, he didn't need to add this to his collection. He sighed and remembered the purpose of the gift. These were Valentine's Day bracelets, and once given, the recipient would inherit their magical abilities. The best part? It didn't matter if he gave both to one person or split them between 2, the effect would be the same for everyone. All right, Lorien said, tossing the jewelry back into his bag. I'll give these to Wanda and Gwen. As he thought about it more, Lorien realized just how perfect the bracelets were for the 2 women. Wanda, a powerful mage with high attack but low defense, could benefit greatly from their powers. Gwen, a balanced fighter, would find her abilities enhanced as well. The bracelets contained 12 talismans, each granting extraordinary abilities: life, strength, balance, speed, blasting, invisibility, healing, spirit projection, transformation, levitation, immortality, and laser. Lorien marveled at the potential. Each talisman's power could complement the strengths and cover the weaknesses of both women. He could imagine Gwen using the power of speed to outmaneuver her enemies, or Wanda employing the power of transformation to adapt to any combat situation. Suddenly, a realization struck him. The Tiger Talisman, with its ability to create yin and yang clones, could split a person into 2. This meant that Gwen could be 2 Gwens, and Wanda could be 2 Wandas. Double? No, it's 4 times. Lorien exclaimed, holding the bracelets with newfound excitement. You really are divine weapons. Determined to share these gifts as soon as possible, Lorien made up his mind. He needed to test these bracelets himself purely for research purposes, of course. Meanwhile, at the Avengers base. Captain America was convening what might be their last meeting for a while. After discussing the first incident reported by citizens, he presented another video and a stack of documents to the group. As you can see, he began, a mecha, which Tony has dubbed a transformer, has appeared in our world. Tony had confirmed that this transformer was not one of his creations, leaving the team to question its origin, numbers, and maximum combat capabilities. Captain America emphasized the urgency. Our next mission includes investigating the ownership and full details of this transformer. The team dispersed after the briefing. Some members were deep in thought, others nodded in understanding, and a few immediately began preparing for action. But only Wanda and Natasha seemed particularly intrigued and puzzled. Natasha couldn't shake the feeling that she had seen something similar before. She remembered Lorien and Wanda having afternoon tea together not too long ago. The car Lorien had been driving back then bore a striking resemblance to the one in the video. Determined to get to the bottom of this, Natasha decided to investigate further on her own. Wanda, on the other hand, was filled with mixed feelings. If Lorien did own the transformer, it would be a surprising revelation, but one that would reassure her about his safety. If not, it wouldn't change how she felt about him. Either way, she left the base in a state of eager anticipation. As she stepped outside, Wanda noticed it was raining heavily. Without a car, she wondered how she would get to Lorien's place. Ouch! Natasha's voice interrupted her thoughts as she pulled up in a sleek Audi R8. Looking for Lorien? I'll give you a lift. Wanda looked at the two-seater sports car in confusion. But you only have 2 seats. When we get to Lorien's, where will he sit? Or are you planning to drop me off and head back alone? Natasha raised an eyebrow but then sighed. She swapped the R8 for a more practical 4-seater Audi. Wanda quickly ran back inside, changed into dry clothes, grabbed 2 umbrellas, and joined Natasha in the car. Finally, they set off towards the north building. Back at the north building, Lorien stepped out of the elevator and was greeted by the sound of rain pouring outside. He had never been fond of rainy days, they always seemed to put him in a melancholic mood. And today was no exception. Just as he was contemplating how to get to his destination without getting drenched, an umbrella appeared beside him. He turned to see Wanda standing there, smiling gently at him. "Are you back? Are you hurt?" he asked, relieved and surprised to see her. "No," Wanda replied softly. The mission was straightforward. The enemies were not as resilient as those mutant rats. One wave and they were finished. As they walked together under the umbrella, Natasha observed from a distance. She couldn't help but recall the moment when Wanda had used her magic to crush 2 cars with sheer force. The memory of blood seeping out from the crushed vehicles still haunted the team. Wanda turned to Lorien and explained, "It was raining, so Natasha brought me here." Lorien glanced over at Natasha. "Oh, you're here too." Natasha _____. Chapter 51, Coffee at the Beach. Natasha's investigation. Lorien smiled at Wanda and asked, "It's raining now, so what do you say we do?" His eyes took in her appearance, noting the changes since their last meeting. She had swapped her usual windbreaker for a thicker, brown-red coat suitable for the rainy weather. Below, she wore tight blue jeans and black boots, which accentuated the curves of her legs, giving her a mature and charming look. He couldn't help but admire her delicate face, which looked as captivating as ever. Despite the dreary weather, Wanda's presence brought a spark of warmth to the moment. Wanda pondered his question. On a rainy day like this, there weren't many options for places to visit. But turning back wasn't an option she wanted to consider either. After a brief moment of indecision, she looked a bit troubled, clearly unfamiliar with New York's spots for rainy days. Sensing her unease, Lorien gently rubbed his head and suggested, "How about this? I'll take you to a nice little cafe. Their coffee might be average, but the environment and atmosphere are fantastic." Wanda's face lit up with a smile, and she nodded eagerly. Seeing her reaction, Natasha, standing nearby, could only shrug and nod in agreement. Lorien and Wanda climbed into the back seat of the Audi, leaving Natasha to take the wheel. As she glanced at them through the rearview mirror, Natasha couldn't help but sigh. On the battlefield, Wanda's chaos magic had made her one of the most feared and respected members of the Avengers. Even Captain America spoke to her with a careful, measured tone. But here, with Lorien, she was different, gentler, almost vulnerable. This wasn't the Wanda Natasha and the rest of the Avengers knew. The Wanda they saw was a fortress of strength and self-protection, an icy exterior guarding a warm, peaceful heart. Lorien caught Natasha's gaze in the rearview mirror and met her eyes with a steady look, bringing her back to the present. She refocused on driving, her curiosity about Lorien deepening with each passing moment. There was an air of mystery around him that Natasha, with her sharp instincts, found increasingly complex and intriguing. As if reading her mind, Lorien thought, let her wonder. From the moment he had begun demonstrating his abilities to Doctor Strange, he had known that his secrets would eventually come to light. Following Lorien's directions, Natasha navigated through the rainy streets. Turn left, now right, and then another right up ahead, he guided her until they arrived at a quaint seaside park. They got out of the car, huddling under two umbrellas. Lorien led them to a cozy cafe by the beach. With its large floor-to-ceiling windows on three sides, the cafe offered a perfect view of the stormy sea. The place was empty, save for the staff, likely because most people avoided the beach in such weather. But for Lorien, the rain only enhanced the cafe's charm. They settled at a table and ordered coffee. Wanda gazed out the window, admiring the misty horizon where the land was barely visible through the rain. Why doesn't anyone come here when it rains? It's beautiful, she mused aloud. Natasha, with her vast experience as an agent, answered knowingly, because it's a challenge to make it here through the rain. But it's precisely the heavy rain that makes it the best time to visit. A waiter brought their coffees along with some complimentary desserts and cookies. They began to chat, their conversation flowing easily over the sound of the rain. So, how was the mission abroad? Lorien asked Wanda. Was it smooth? Did you see any interesting places? Wanda shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. It was mostly dirt and dust. But the mission went well. I crushed them to pieces, just like you taught me to handle the mutant rats. Lorien's eyes widened slightly, while Natasha let out a small, amused sigh. Lorien looked to Natasha for confirmation, and she nodded, indicating that Wanda had indeed used her newfound strength effectively. Well, Lorien thought, her inner strength has definitely grown, though it might be a bit skewed. But it's still progress. As they continued their conversation, Lorien turned to Natasha with a curious look. You guys are sending out missions frequently now to regain support, and it's working. But if things go south, what do you expect Wanda to do? At first, Wanda thought Lorien was asking about the Avengers' strategy, but as she listened, she realized he was concerned about her future. She gazed at him tenderly, touched by his care. Natasha paused, then replied calmly, every superhero has the right and responsibility to make their own choices. Even if things get bad, Wanda can choose her own path. Lorien nodded, relieved. That's good. Wanda felt a surge of warmth. This moment of being cared for made her feel even more connected to Lorien. Natasha observed their interaction and decided it was time to address her growing suspicions. She took a sip of her coffee and looked at Lorien with a determined expression. I mean no harm, but I have to ask, she began, her tone serious. That red transformer we saw, is it your Ferrari? Chapter 52, that's right, Transformers are mine. Dash. As soon as Natasha's question hung in the air, Wanda's face turned to anger. Natasha. She snapped. Her reaction stemmed from a simple desire, to maintain their current peaceful life without complications. Natasha's direct question threatened to unravel that peace. Whether the answer was yes or no, it would have repercussions. If Lorien denied owning the Transformer, it could bring unwanted scrutiny. If he confirmed it, more trouble might follow. Natasha's inquiry, while understandable, could disrupt everything. But before Wanda's anger could escalate, Lorien gently touched her hand. It's okay, Wanda, he said calmly, his touch soothing her. Wanda took a deep breath and calmed down, though she still glared at Natasha with a hint of hostility. Lorien turned to Natasha and nodded. Yes, it's mine. Natasha's eyes widened in surprise, and Wanda's expression mirrored hers. Lorien took a sip of his coffee, unfazed. What's mine is mine, and what's not, isn't. There's no need to hide the truth. Natasha was taken aback by Lorien's straightforwardness, while Wanda's gaze filled with admiration. In some ways, Lorien reminded Natasha of Tony Stark, both men were unafraid to take responsibility for their actions. However, their personalities were entirely different, sharing only the trait of unwavering confidence. Natasha, processing Lorien's confirmation, took a moment to compose herself before asking, is there anything more you can tell me about it? I need to gather as much information as possible for our mission, but feel free to share only what you can. Understanding the delicate situation within the Avengers, Natasha added, the Avengers' internal situation is complicated right now. I assure you, whatever you tell me about the Transformer will remain between us. Wanda's glare softened slightly at Natasha's promise, sensing her sincere intention to avoid disrupting their lives. Lorien nodded, appreciating Natasha's discretion. It was clear she was being cautious and respectful, rather than demanding. There's really not much to explain, Lorien began thoughtfully. It's called a Transformer, and I named it Skyfire. It's not just a machine, it's a living entity with a soul and autonomous awareness. It's not a product of human technology but of alien power. These are two entirely different concepts. Even if Tony studied it, the results wouldn't align with our Earth's technology tree. As Lorien spoke, Natasha took meticulous notes. The implications of a sentient, alien-powered entity were enormous. She processed Lorien's words, realizing the profound impact such a being could have. It's incredible, Natasha finally said, her voice tinged with awe. After Lorien finished speaking, Natasha put away her notes, a mix of curiosity and respect in her eyes. She hesitated, then asked, one last question. This is purely out of curiosity, and I promise I won't disclose it to anyone. Lorien nodded. Go ahead. Can it be replicated? Natasha asked, her tone serious. This question carried significant weight. The Avengers' current predicament was partly due to Ultron, an AI created by Tony Stark to control the Iron Legion. Without the advanced AI, even a sophisticated system like Jarvis couldn't manage the vast number of armors Tony envisioned. This led to the creation of Ultron and the subsequent fallout. Natasha's question struck at the heart of a potential new concern. If Skyfire could be replicated, it might lead to a new era of technological advancement or another catastrophic event. Wanda, not fully grasping the technical implications, remained silent. But for Lorien, this question was an opportunity to set clear boundaries. Leaning back in his chair, Lorien put down his coffee cup and smiled at Natasha. As long as I want it to, it can keep coming. Natasha fell silent, absorbing the magnitude of Lorien's statement. An endless supply of Transformers implied unprecedented power. If Lorien ever decided to exert his will, his capabilities could surpass anything currently on Earth. I understand, Natasha said finally, nodding in acknowledgement. She concluded the conversation but added a cautionary note, Tony will likely trace you soon, Lorien. There are very few all-red supercars in New York, and even fewer that can transform. Even if the cameras missed it last night, Tony's satellites could analyze the data step by step. Wanda looked at Lorien, worry etched on her face. She wondered how he would handle such scrutiny. If things became too difficult, she was prepared to protect him, even if it meant confronting Tony Stark. But Lorien remained unfazed. He shrugged and said, it's only a matter of time. I don't mind being known. What I do mind is someone trying to force me into something I don't want to do or disturbing my life. Wanda squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with affection and agreement. She nodded, silently communicating that she stood by him, no matter what. Natasha, observing their bond, understood that this was Lorien and Wanda's moment. She rose, paid the bill, and quietly left the cafe. Lorien watched her go, then took out his phone and pressed a button. It's okay, he said, looking at Wanda with a reassuring smile. I'll have Skyfire come over. Dash. Some power stones. Comment. 23 Comment. Vote. Chapter 53, Chapter 53, Affectionate Wanda. Show Transformers. Chapter 53, Affectionate Wanda. Show Transformers. Dash. Lorien turned on his cell phone and pressed a few buttons. In a VIP parking space in the underground garage of the North Building, a Ferrari roared to life with a whoosh. It then drove out of the parking space and made its way toward Lorien's location. A few minutes later, the rain had stopped in New York. Wanda and Lorien stood outside, watching as the brand new Ferrari pulled up. It halted smoothly in front of them. Wow! Wanda exclaimed, reaching out to touch the car's sleek exterior. It's newer and better looking than before. This red is so beautiful, it's intoxicating. I think it's the best looking red ever. As she praised the car, gold-plated letters appeared on its surface, spelling out, thanks. Wanda was delighted. Wow, she said again, clearly even more taken with the Ferrari. Lorien smiled at her reaction. Do you want to see what it looks like when it transforms? Yes. Wanda replied eagerly. Let's go, Lorien said, leading her into the car. The doors closed automatically behind them. Inside, Wanda noticed that every part of the Ferrari seemed alive, intelligent, and capable of change. So this is what you mean by a mechanical life form with a soul, Wanda marveled. Earth's technology could never do this. Lorien drove the Ferrari, named Skyfire, toward a deserted beach. There is technology on Earth that can achieve something close, he explained. Tony Stark is developing nanotechnology that can create mechs. But even then, they would be controlled by artificial intelligence, not a being like Skyfire that has its own soul and intelligence. Wanda nodded, understanding the distinction. Skyfire displayed a smiley face emoticon on the windshield, making Wanda laugh. Soon, Lorien stopped the car in a secluded spot. Without getting out, he spoke to Skyfire. You can transform now. Ah! Wanda was surprised. But we haven't left the car yet. Before she could say more, Skyfire began to transform. The front of the car lifted, and with a series of mechanical sounds, Lorien and Wanda found themselves gently placed on the ground. They watched as Skyfire continued to morph. Wanda realized something crucial as she observed the transformation. Transformers didn't have to follow a rigid sequence, they could adapt and change as needed. They were not confined to a single mold but were entirely flexible and autonomous. When the transformation was complete, a towering figure over 9 meters tall knelt on one knee before Lorien. Bowing its head, it placed its right hand on its chest and said respectfully, "Boss." Lorien nodded in acknowledgement. Wanda was mesmerized, circling around Skyfire's enormous form. She noticed her name, Skyfire, written in gold on the Transformer's body, signifying its bond and allegiance to Lorien. "It's really impressive," she said with satisfaction. "Now I get why boys love cars. And especially Autobots." Lorien smiled at her enthusiasm. Reflecting on his own childhood fascination with machinery, he agreed. "Yeah, there's something captivating about them." He looked from Skyfire to Wanda and then spoke to Skyfire. "From now on, Wanda and Gwen will have secondary command authority. They can direct you when I'm not around." Skyfire nodded. "Yes, boss." Wanda looked puzzled. "We?" Lorien nodded and smiled at her. "Yes. When you and Gwen choose the cars you like, I'll transform them into Transformers for you. Each of you will have one. They can protect you in your daily life." As the bearer of the Allspark, Lorien found it easy to convert cars into sentient beings. For him, it was as simple as a breath. The cars he transformed would still belong to him, but they would be entrusted to Wanda and Gwen. Wanda was overjoyed. She leapt into Lorien's arms, hugging him tightly. "That's amazing. Thank you, Lorien." "Wait, I'm not done yet." Lorien began, but Wanda covered his mouth with a kiss. They stayed close, playing and enjoying their moment in the deserted place. Skyfire, sensing the intimate moment, transformed back into its car form. After a long embrace, Wanda pulled away slightly, holding Lorien's face. "I don't want you to just keep giving me things. I may not know if I get paid in the Avengers, but I promise to save up and give you a gift too. Although, I don't know if I can find anything as special as what you've given me." Lorien gently held Wanda's hands, sensing her concern about their unequal exchange of gifts. Looking into her eyes, he spoke with love and reassurance. "No, Wanda. You always give me the best gifts." "Hey." Wanda looked confused. Lorien kissed her forehead and whispered softly, "Because you are the best gift the world has given me." Wanda's heart swelled with emotion. Overwhelmed, she embraced Lorien again, losing herself in the moment. Chapter 54, The Most Affectionate Person in New York. She didn't object. Finally, on the deserted beach, it had just rained heavily, and it seemed as if the world had been washed clean. Lorien and Wanda stayed close to each other in the Ferrari. It took a long time before their long, deep kiss ended. After they separated, the love in Wanda's eyes was almost palpable. Among Wanda and Gwen, she was the first to be moved and then to act on those feelings. Gwen also had feelings, but she hadn't moved as fast. At the seaside, Wanda hugged Lorien, burying her face in his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat, which felt like a soothing rhythm to her. After a while, Wanda, still with her face in Lorien's chest, spoke softly, her voice muffled. Gwen likes you too. Lorien. Enjoying the moment, Lorien wondered why Wanda was bringing up another woman. But his heartbeat remained steady. He asked softly, you feel it? How could I not feel it? Wanda's voice was even more muffled. I am like a fire, close to you, the best firewood in the world. But how can I not feel that there is also a fire that wants to ignite you? Lorien's heart almost skipped a beat. Her words were beautiful and profound. He couldn't help but hold Wanda a little tighter, but she didn't mind. Instead, she leaned more comfortably against his chest. But in Sokovia, Wanda continued, we don't care about legal marriage certificates. We care more about the feelings between each other. My love for you is like a burning fire. But I can sense Gwen's feelings too. So. Wanda stopped, but Lorien knew what she meant. She wasn't objecting. If she didn't agree, she would have said no outright. But now, she didn't refuse, meaning it was possible. However, there were still unknowns, such as the Avengers issues, Wanda's own problems, and the challenges superheroes faced. Wanda was entangled in these matters, so she couldn't give a definite answer at the moment. But she didn't refuse. Wanda added, give me some time to adjust, okay? After our lives are stable and I no longer have any unnecessary worries, we can peacefully and happily find the meaning of life. It just takes a while. Lorien hugged her and responded without hesitation. Sure. I have an old saying for you. Wanda looked up, confused. What? Lorien recited Qin Guan's poem, Magpie Bridge Fairy, if the love between two people is long-lasting, why does it matter if they are together day and night? He translated and explained it to Wanda. She closed her eyes, contemplating the meaning, then opened them and nodded affirmatively. They looked at each other for a long time, but the moment was interrupted by Wanda's agent phone ringing. Instantly, Lorien felt Wanda's annoyance, she hated being disturbed now. However, she answered the phone, knowing it was urgent. Hello? Natasha? Okay, I got it. I'll come back now. After a few words, Wanda hung up, sighed, and explained to Lorien. The United Nations drafted the Sokovia Accords. Many countries were invited to vote. The 5 permanent members abstained, but most countries are likely to vote in favor. So I have to go back, sorry. Lorien nodded, patting Wanda on the back. Go ahead, it's okay. If the Avengers disband, you'll be free. Wanda smiled. It seems to be true. Lorien took Wanda into the car and drove her back to the Avengers base. He didn't interfere with the Avengers' internal affairs. As for Wanda, he respected her autonomy, not wanting to control her life. For example, saying, Wanda, please quit, and I will support you, would be an insult to capable women like Wanda and Gwen. They didn't want to rely on him for everything. So Lorien chose to be the man behind the scenes, making sure anyone who wanted to harm the 2 women knew to watch out for him. After sending Wanda away, Lorien drove back home. As soon as he reached the top of the building, he didn't press his fingerprint to open the door. He sensed a small spider crouching on the ceiling. Pretending to open the door, he waited for the spider to slide down behind him. Lorien quickly opened the door, grabbed Gwen, who had just hung by her thread, and entered the room, slamming the door shut with the power of the Phoenix. Gwen was stunned and hadn't reacted yet. Ah! No! But once the door closed, the sound was blocked out. Chapter 55, Gwen Cosplay. Try the Tiger Spell. Indoors, Lorien threw Gwen into the house. While changing his shoes, he unbuttoned 2 buttons on his collar to get some fresh air. Ah, don't! But what he didn't expect was that Gwen threw her bag aside and started acting out a scene, cosplaying as a pure, beautiful, and weak schoolgirl being kidnapped by a very evil villain Lorien himself. Gwen was naturally suited for this role, still being a high school student. Watching her act, Lorien smiled, took off his shoes, and continued unbuttoning his shirt. Soon, his shirt was fully unbuttoned and fluttered to both sides, revealing his perfect muscle lines. Lorien walked forward steadily as Gwen sat back, her eyes fixed on his abdominal and pectoral muscles, swallowing nervously. Lorien. Lorien felt a bit strange, as if he were the fish being hooked in this playful scenario. Without further hesitation, Lorien walked over, grabbed Gwen by her belt, and lifted her up. Ah, Gwen was stunned, her body forming an N shape in Lorien's hands. He walked to the chair, sat down, and placed her on his lap, back facing up. Finally, he raised his hand high and brought it down heavily. Snapped. Ah! Gwen screamed, tears almost welling up. She quickly reached out to cover her throat, then turned to look at Lorien with big watery eyes, asking, "Why are you really hitting me?" Lorien slapped her again before letting her go, saying, "This is your punishment for trying to sneak up on me and scare me." Gwen jumped up immediately after being released, stubbornly rubbing her back. "What if I just wanted to pet you? Have you forgotten what my profession is?" Lorien looked at her as if she were a fool. Gwen was stunned. "All right." Lorien understood Gwen's little tricks clearly. Though Gwen was secretly happy, she still pretended to be unhappy. "I don't care, you hit me, you have to compensate me." She didn't really want anything significant, perhaps just some loving words or a kiss from Lorien. Lorien thought for a moment, then took out the 12 talisman bracelet. "Okay, this is my compensation to you." "Ah!" Gwen was stunned, looking at the exquisite bracelet in Lorien's hand. Though the 12 gems were not big, they were very beautiful, captivating at first sight. But Gwen hesitated. She liked it, but her good family upbringing made her wary of accepting expensive gifts directly, even from her boyfriend. Lorien, sensing her hesitation, smiled and took Gwen's right hand, putting the bracelet of 12 talismans on her wrist. "Don't worry, it means more than it's worth to me. And you are the best gift from God to me. This 12 talisman bracelet is a gift to protect you when I am not with you." Although it was a bit of an exaggeration, it wasn't a big deal as long as it was useful. 12 talismans. Gwen hesitated, noticing that the bracelet had been securely fastened to her wrist. Then the 12 talismans flashed with golden light, and Gwen found that the bracelet couldn't be removed no matter how hard she tried. "This is a binding piece of jewelry. When you want to take it off, just say it silently in your mind. When you don't want to take it off, no one can force it off unless it crashes violently or you are willing." Lorien then explained the use of each of the 12 spells to Gwen, who was amazed and excited. "Wow!" she exclaimed, eagerly trying the snake charm's invisibility ability. At first, Gwen could make herself invisible by standing still. Once mastered, she could make objects and groups invisible, and with proficiency, she could even become invisible and teleport simultaneously. She tested the power and was delighted when she disappeared from Lorien's sight. "Woo!" Gwen said excitedly, "Guess where I am, Lorien?" Snapped. "Ah!" Lorien slapped her lightly, causing Gwen to reappear. "I want you to show your true colors," Lorien said, smiling. Although invisibility was impressive, Lorien knew the true potential lay in the yin and yang power of the tiger talisman, which could create clones. He looked at Gwen seriously and said, "Gwen, I'm sure you're very talented. You should try the yin and yang power of the tiger talisman. Let me see the limit of your talent." Creating a clone, Gwen X2. Chapter 56, Gwen Duplication. Gwen number 2. Join the war. 1. The yin-yang power of the tiger talisman. After hearing about this ability, Gwen didn't understand the literal meaning. Yin and yang force? What is it? Seeing Gwen's confusion, Lorien adopted a teaching tone. "The force of yin and yang refers to two parts of a whole," he began. "It's like some people who look cold on the outside but have a fiery heart inside. But the power of yin and yang doesn't mean two extremes. It's not that one has to be good and the other bad. It's two directions of a whole." Gwen thought for a while after hearing this. She was pondering what her two directions might be. After thinking for a long time, Gwen only thought of herself as outgoing. So, was her other self an introvert? "Let's try it," she said, closing her eyes and trying to use the tiger talisman's ability. With a whoosh, a projection similar to Gwen separated from her body. Another Gwen appeared next to the original Gwen and gradually transformed into a solid entity. Both wore the same clothes, and what one Gwen looked like, the other did too. Even the details were exactly the same. Except the demeanor was different. Yes, after Gwen became an entity, she looked at her body, then at Lorien. She blushed, turned her head to one side, and didn't dare look at Lorien at all. "Ah, this." Lorien suddenly realized. This Gwen's character was likely the reverse of the original Gwen's. The original was lively and outgoing, while this one was shy and introverted. But from the look in her eyes, it was clear that she also liked Lorien. Both of them liked Lorien. This was constant. Only the personality had changed. And at first glance, this Gwen was a bit like Hinata Hyuga from Naruto. Wow, Gwen herself exclaimed. She walked up to this Gwen and took a good look, then rubbed her fingers against her stomach. Skin is the same. What are you doing? The Gwen duplicate shyly pushed Gwen's fingers away and said in a low voice, "Don't touch me directly." Gwen was taken aback, then pointed at the Gwen and said to Lorien, "She's not like me. How can she be so shy?" Lorien nodded and explained. "You don't have a bad heart. So the opposite direction you change is the inner character. Unless you consider creating someone who is worse than you in the future." Gwen thought about it and was genuinely intrigued. "Then I'll try next time." She walked over to Lorien, wrapped her arm around his, and said, "Let's drink beer. Last time we promised to drink beer." "You." This Gwen had just finished speaking when the other Gwen objected. She blushed when she saw Gwen hugging Lorien, immediately trotted over, and hugged Lorien's other arm. Then she buried her face in his shoulder and whispered, "I also want." The contrasting performance of the Gwen made Lorien's heart melt. After interacting with the lively Gwen, Lorien thought this was the best Spider-Woman in the Marvel Universe. But who knew? This Gwen wasn't bad either. "Hey!" The original Gwen protested. She looked at Gwen and said, "Could you speak louder? Just say what you want to do, can't you?" Gwen in Lorien's arms mumbled loudly, "I want to drink too." Well, compared to the previous sentence, it was pretty loud. Although not half as loud as Gwen had spoken just now. Gwen looked at her other self, so shy, and immediately lost her temper. She especially wanted to tease her own duplicate. But Lorien smiled, pulled the two of them into the wine room, and said, "Choose what you want to drink." Gwen looked at the bottles of wine on the wine rack, let go of Lorien's arm, and started to pick. Gwen did the same, letting go to choose. The two moved together in front of the wine rack, squatting down to see which wine might be suitable. Lorien, behind them, looked at their backs and nodded. "Good. Very good. These 12 talismans are really amazing." Lorien crossed his arms and touched his chin. "Is it possible? Can I draw out the duplicates in the future?" "No, normal duplicates are fine too. But if I can draw out the technique of seduction that Naruto used, I'll guarantee 3 sticks of incense to the system." "No, 33 sticks of incense will do." Lorien went to prepare snacks and desserts, turning on the TV to play a program. After a while, Gwen came over with a bottle of wine each. Lorien was taken aback. "You can finish your drink." Gwen pouted and looked at Gwen beside her. She insists on drinking something with a strong fragrance. "I want to drink something refreshing." Duplicate Gwen, not to be outdone, held her wine tightly and muttered, "This should be delicious." "Lorien?" "No." "Then why do both of you choose the one with the higher alcohol content? Wouldn't it be better to drink something lighter?" Lorien stepped forward, took 2 bottles of wine, and examined them. "All right. No one can drink this without getting drunk after a normal person." "Okay, fine," Lorien said, getting a bottle opener and opening both bottles. "It's a good time to practice your drinking capacity. Don't overdo it when you celebrate in the future." He brought 3 glasses and poured Gwen's wine for Gwen and Gwen's wine for Gwen. For his own wine. Lorien thought about it and decided to pour both wines together. "Can't I handle it? With my Superman body, what am I afraid of?" As expected, when Lorien poured the wine like this, both Gwens just pouted but had no complaints. Smart move. After pouring the wine, all 3 picked up their glasses and drank. "Cheers. X3. They clinked glasses and took a big gulp. "Ha! Hoo!" As expected, the 2 Gwens stuck out their small tongues after drinking. "Slightly spicy." Lorien smiled without saying a word. 2 little lightweights. News was playing on the TV at that moment. The United Nations proposes to issue the Sokovia Agreement to restrict the powerful rights of Avengers. Captain America expressed strong dissatisfaction and rejection. However, Mr. Iron Man Tony Stark did not issue any comments on this. This agreement will be decided by multi-country voting at the United Nations Vienna International Center. Once the agreement is passed, Avengers must be checked and balanced, otherwise, it will be a declaration of war with the United Nations. After Gwen heard the TV news, she leaned back with her astonishingly curved little willow waist and watched the TV. Then she turned back and shook her head at Lorien. "Lorien, it's better to be a free superhero. Avengers are still under control, so don't they have to report in advance for everything they do? And then write a summary afterward? No freedom at all. After speaking, Gwen spread her hands and shook her head, expressing great disapproval of this. Gwen and Peter Parker from other universes are different. Peter Parker is heroic. He genuinely wants to be a superhero and join the Avengers. But Gwen is different. Gwen just values her freedom. She also fights criminals and lends a helping hand. But she doesn't have those superhero heart plots. To this, her duplicate Gwen blushed and nodded in agreement. Chapter 57, Gwen Duplication. Gwen number 2. Join the war. 2. Lorien looked at little Gwen. She looks like this. It's so tempting to bully her. But let's get down to business. Lorien took a sip of the wine, then nodded and agreed with Gwen's opinion. In the final analysis, at least half of the reason is that other countries in the United Nations are afraid of super-powerful individuals changing history. A superhero is one thing, but a missile is nothing more than a tactical nuclear bomb. One superhero has the potential to change the whole world. Tony almost did it all by himself. Lorien finished speaking. Gwen thought about it and nodded in agreement. Do you really think the UN wanted to sanction the Avengers because they caused so much damage? Do you really think the sanctions were imposed because of the citizens' opposition? Not completely. Those are just fuses. Some of them were even deliberately pushed and blocked by someone behind. And the real big reason is because the United Nations is afraid of the actionability of superheroes gathering together. Why don't they care about free superheroes, just the Avengers? This is not the reason by itself. And superhero registration is to find out all the superheroes and conveniently keep an eye on them. More specifically, it's a force that challenges the United Nations' own security and rights. That's why they have to be sanctioned. After all, there are many things that have been done in the past. But Gwen suddenly asked curiously, what about Wanda? Very simple. I've already chatted with her, Lorien said, putting down his empty glass and refilling it. She'll just wait and see what's going on. If the Avengers disband, she becomes free. But if she's really restrained, I think she'll quit and become a free superhero like you. No, she'll come work with me, he added with a grin. I need an assistant to play games with me. Early 9 to late 5, with food, housing, and weekends off, and a luxury car when you join the job. Gwen suddenly widened her eyes and raised her hands to vote. I. The conditions were too generous. Even the shy Gwen raised her hand. But Lorien smiled and looked at them. You don't even go to university and want to work? I don't want a high school student. I can work part-time, Gwen said with a pout. I don't accept part-time jobs, only full-time jobs, Lorien said, taking another sip of wine. Your part-time job is being a superhero. How can you work 2 jobs? Okay. Gwen said regretfully, taking a sip of wine and then lying down on the seat, muttering, I'm almost graduating, and I'll be a college student soon. Speaking of college, Lorien suddenly asked curiously, how are your grades, and what university are you planning to go to? I don't know, Gwen said playfully. Anyway, as long as it's a university in New York. Columbia University, New York University, whatever. Hearing Gwen's words, Lorien understood what she meant. University was not a big problem for her. This girl was originally a top student. Then what major do you want to study? Lorien asked again. If you want to learn, you just need to lean on the back, Gwen said. Her memory was very impressive. Even before becoming Spider-Gwen, her learning ability was remarkable. Medicine, history, art, or music are all fine. Lorien nodded. Everything is fine, but he wouldn't give advice. After all, hobbies are the most important thing. Gwen can learn whatever she wants. He doesn't need to care about these. Gradually, the three slowly became silent. Not a boring silence, but enjoying the tranquility. The duplicate Gwen didn't like to talk too much, she preferred this kind of environment now. So she was lying on the table while sipping wine. From time to time, she would look up at Lorien, but then shyly lower her eyes again. Tisk. Anyway, Lorien's curiosity was piqued. After a while, Gwen got up and took her wine glass, but then half a glass of wine spilled all over her clothes. Oh. Gwen pouted, a little annoyed. Just go take a shower, Lorien nodded. And Gwen went to take a shower, leaving Lorien and the duplicate Gwen alone at the table. Taking this opportunity, Lorien asked the duplicate Gwen curiously, "Do you have a problem with the original?" The duplicate Gwen tilted her head and thought for a while. "There is an issue, but not that kind of issue. We are both original. I just have a problem with her character." Lorien was taken aback by her second sentence and then realized that Gwen and Gwen do not mean duplicate and original. Only the technique of shadow duplication has duplicates and an original. The person separated by the tiger talisman is also the main body. One positive, one negative. They are both original bodies. They were one before they separated. So, Lorien asked tentatively again, "If you two merged tomorrow, would you be sad and refuse?" This question was a bit unfeeling. After all, it was tantamount to asking Gwen in the bathroom. "A little bit," the shy Gwen said after thinking for a while. "But we are the same. After merging, I will still be me, just neutralized with Gwen." "I see," Lorien said, suddenly realizing. No wonder this Gwen was a little too outgoing today. It turns out that after the duplicate comes out, the previous Gwen also has a more biased personality, but after they merge, they will be neutralized again. So this is yin and yang. Lorien nodded. He raised his glass and just took a sip when Gwen's voice came from the bathroom. "Lorien, I can't adjust the hot water. Come and help me." "Lorien? No way." Lorien didn't believe that Gwen couldn't boil hot water. "Are you sure you won't?" "Lorien, I really don't know how to do it." "Come and see." "Okay, I'll help her turn on the hot water." "You wait. If it can't be fixed, the hot water is broken. If you can't wait, come and fix it together." After speaking, Lorien got up and went to help Gwen check the hot water. After going, only the shy Gwen was left on the wine table. She was also listening to how the hot water was doing. "I'm coming to check." "PSST. Crash. Isn't there hot water here?" "It's broken now." "Good for you. Then I'll fix it for you on the spot." Lorien immediately started to repair the hot water on the spot. And the shy Gwen waited outside for a long time but did not see the hot water getting fixed. So she walked over to have a look. "Let me help fix it." Chapter 58, 58, The Three Kingdoms. Tony's struggle with shape-shifting transformer, I. Once a war starts, it is difficult to end immediately. It's like a gasoline barrel that has just been ignited. If you want it to burn out, it may take a while. This is impossible. Lorien was just playing games with the Gwens. He didn't know how long it had been. Wait until the battle is really over. It seemed like it was late at night. Isn't it normal to play this game all night? Keek keek. But inside a beach house in Los Angeles, Tony, after some breakthroughs in nanotechnology, went back to his seat. Thinking about the shape-shifting transformer, Tony pondered for a long time. No, it was Tony thinking about it for a few days. He didn't understand the principle of this shape-shifting transformer. You say it's nanotechnology, but Tony saw no trace of nanotechnology at all in the satellite records. Tell me about its physical structure. That's even more impossible. Tony was very sure. The shape-shifting transformer has some shape-shifting principles that cannot be achieved by mechanical shape-shifting at all. Because the original car module is considered an upgrade, it is also impossible to create this shape-shifting transformer. So what technology is it made of? Tony couldn't figure it out. But the more he couldn't figure it out, the more he wanted to know. Simply put, it's brain dead. After thinking for a long time, Tony had no choice but to say, "Friday, make a list of all the highlights from that night's tape that you think are important." "Okay, sir," Friday answered and added, "Sir, Captain America informs you to participate in the Sokovia Accords discussion tomorrow." "Tell him I'm sick and in the hospital," Tony replied coldly. "Sir, Captain America reminds you that this may be the last meeting of the Avengers, and the consequences of not going will be serious." Tony couldn't help laughing when he heard it. The troubles he caused are getting bigger and bigger. Is he in a hurry to be punished now? Tony's own steel armor was also sanctioned when it was developed. But he is a person, and for good reason, with high public support. So his sanctions passed easily. But Captain America is different. He has attracted too many people. And was sanctioned by the United Nations. Definitely, this includes Tony too. Finally, after thinking about it, Tony sighed. "Tell him I'll be there tomorrow." Okay, sir, here are the important data I sorted out, Friday responded. After Tony finished speaking, he started looking at the data compiled by Friday. Power calculation, combat power estimation, shape-shifting analysis, weapon and body strength, intelligence level, and so on. Some of these data are unknown. Some are calculated from known footage. Definitely, there is much more that is unknown. Tony watched carefully. After all, this was his last data analysis. If this doesn't reveal the reason, then he'll just have to scan the whole city on Friday and find it himself. Tony watched them one by one until the end. A hot golden fonts appeared in front of his eyes. Seeing these words, Tony froze for a moment. Then he immediately found out Lorien's business card. Tony held the business card in one hand and projected a pair on the other. Okay, is it different? So. I searched for a long time, and it turns out that this shape-shifting transformer belongs to Lorien. Tony's mouth twitched, almost unable to breathe. He had been looking for more than half a day. He had been looking for it for several nights. This is the result? So is he happy or unhappy? For a while, the corner of Tony's mouth nearly had a stroke. He almost felt that life was meaningless. Suddenly, Friday spoke again. Sir, Agent Romanoff uploaded a piece of information into the database, which is about the shape-shifting transformer. Intelligence. Tony was taken aback for a moment and checked immediately. As soon as he called up the data, he saw it clearly written, the shape-shifting transformer is not a product of the human technology, but a product of some kind of alien technology. They have life and soul, independent consciousness and character. So they are not creations of Earth technology. No force on Earth can replicate it. Natasha Romanoff uploaded the initial search materials. And what she found later was indeed not uploaded. This shows that Natasha Romanoff kept her word. She shared what she should have shared and didn't say what she shouldn't have. Seeing this, Tony shook his head in shock and sighed. There is life, there is a soul, there is character, alien technological life. That is to say, they are mechanical life, a living thing, not manufactured. The information uploaded by Natasha Romanoff shocked Tony a lot. Because the answer was completely different from what he thought. He thought it was man-made, it was a technology, and it was possibly related to nanotechnology. But he really didn't expect this to be mechanical life. Humans are carbon-based creatures, but the shape-shifting transformer is a mechanical creature. This is amazing. Tony had never seen mechanical life in his life. People all over the world had never seen mechanical life. And now mechanical life appears. And in the hands of a friend he knew. Thinking about this, Tony was so excited that he couldn't sleep. Lorien, where is my friend here? This is a brother. The next day, Lorien woke up to find that the spiders around him had changed from 2 to 1. Lorien looked at the only one left. He didn't know if it was the outgoing Gwen or the inner Gwen. Or was this the Gwen after they fused? No way, he couldn't tell the difference. After last night's experience, Lorien now knew that the yin-yang duplication of the tiger talisman was not only the same on the outside but also on the inside. The only difference was their character and heart. Different personalities give different responses. But that's all off topic. Now Lorien didn't know which Gwen she was. Lorien thought about it but decided not to worry. He got up quietly. Looking at the mess and soaking the floor, Lorien didn't snap his fingers this time. He just hummed lightly. Immediately, a wave spread. The next moment, the whole room became neat and tidy. Even Gwen, who was sleeping soundly, became clean, even cleaner than after taking a bath. Lorien looked at the time. It was only past 7 in the morning. All right. Lorien left a note, then went downstairs to the beach to get some fresh air. Last night was absolutely crazy. Crazier than last time. If Lorien is compared to 1, Gwen and others are compared to 2, and offense is compared to 1, then yesterday's battle was a melee. Sometimes 1-2, sometimes 1-2, sometimes 2-2. In short, it was too cruel. So cruel that Lorien didn't even dare to think about it. T/N. As Lorien was jogging, he turned a corner and saw a man in casual clothes, sunglasses, a red and yellow mechanical watch, and a pair of dark circles trotting up to follow him. Lorien was amused by Tony's wonderful operation. That's who he is. A bit paranoid.
Thanks for listening.